Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Colonel retired Todd Riker, and it's my privilege to welcome you to the Greystone Class of 2014 Honor Code and Standards of Conduct Ceremony. Tonight, 42 future military officers will pledge to abide by a code of honor and set of conduct standards that they developed as a class based on research of the honor codes and standards of conduct at the 5 Federal Service Academies. Before we begin, I'd like to ask everyone to please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Joining us this evening are members of the Greystone Board of Directors, who I'd like to recognize at this time. As I introduce you, I'd ask that you please stand briefly and be recognized. And for the audience, please hold your applause until all the introductions are completed. First, I'd like to introduce Colonel Bill Crum, Chairman of the Board of Directors. Mr. Jack Deere, Vice Chairman of the Board. Captain Fred Vogt, Board Member. Mrs. Virginia Spike, Secretary of the Board. Dr. Stephen McKay, Advisory Board Member. And last but never least, Commander David Bailey, Founder and Executive Director of the Greystone Preparatory School. How about a round of applause? I'd now like to introduce the Honorable Judge Pat Tinley, who will be presiding over our ceremony this evening. Judge Tinley served in the United States Army for 25 years and has practiced law in the Kerrville and Hill Country area for over 40 years. He was elected as the Kerr County Judge in 2002 and is currently serving his 3rd consecutive term in that position. Judge Tinley is a member of the Greystone Board of Directors. He's a tremendous supporter of our program. He acts as the Honor and Conduct Advisor to the class of students. It's therefore my honor to introduce to you the Honorable Judge Pat Tinley.
Thank you. Good to see a nice crowd this evening. It's, again, my honor and privilege to act as, I believe I'm supposed to be a moderator, I think is what they chose to call me this time for this program. I want you to understand that the program that we're going to have tonight is not my program. It's not senior staff's program. It's the program of the class, Greystone class of 2014. They prepared it, and they will present it, and they are responsible for it. So the focus is on these fine young men and women who are in the process of embarking upon their quest for an appointment to the military academies of the United States. When each of these young men and women are admitted to the various military academies to which they'll apply, they will become subject to the honor code of whatever particular academy to which they're accepted. Now, by their actions here this evening as part of the Greystone program, in promulgating and accepting and signing on to live by the honor code and the standards of conduct that they subscribe themselves to here this evening, they are in essence getting a leg up, as it were, on their contemporaries when they go into the academies next year. They will have already lived by these codes. They will be experienced in their operation. And hopefully they will be some of the underclassmen who work their way through the ranks who administer the codes in those academies themselves. That's part of the Greystone experience and something that has been part of the experience from day one. Our program tonight, as you may see from the handout that you were given, is broken out into essentially two separate segments, one dealing with the honor code, which will be presented, and then upon presentation of the honor code by that group of Greystoners that are responsible for that portion of the program, there will be a discussion, question, call it what you like, kind of a leaning and flashing out to whatever degree that you choose. We will then go into the standards of conduct portion of the program. And here again, after it is presented, there will be a discussion, question, whatever, to the degree that you like there. That's essentially the breakdown of how it's going to go forward this evening. So at this point, let's go forward and move on with the first segment of the program.
Thank you, Judge Tinley. I'd like to call forward Chris Tenega, who will come as the honor chairman for the class of 2014 to present his class's code of honor. Chris?
Thank you, Colonel, for that introduction. First off, I'd like to introduce the honor committee of the class of 2014. First off is Vice Chairman Christina Roberts. It is Tina's job to help me with administrative and investigative processes. Give me a sip. Next is Grayson Strauss, the Chief Investigating Officer of the Honor Committee. It is Grayson's job to launch an investigation into any case and to provide interviews as well as take written testimony. Next are the honor representatives for each of the 4 squads. First squad's representative is Nicholas Whiting. The representative for second squad is Garrett Sutherland. The honor representative for the third squad is Drew Julius. And the honor representative for fourth squad is Jordan Anderson. You may be seated. At Greystone, we are striving to become future officers of our country's military. And because of that, we are viewed in a different light by the American people. We are held to a higher standard of personal integrity. And the people are right. If we want to serve our country, we have a duty to be the standard bearer of character. As a class, we have developed our own honor code inspired by the codes of the academies. So without further ado, I'd like to unveil the honor code for the class of 2014. As members of the Greystone class of 2014, in the pursuit of serving our nation as military officers, we willingly adhere to the following. Now, for those who have lost their eyesight like Commander Bailey, we enlarge the case for your viewing pleasure. We will remain truthful in all our actions, without the intent to deliberately deceive by stating an untruth through direct or indirect means of communication, and withholding any incriminating evidence against another or oneself. I will not lie. This clause focuses on one of the most important traits of character, being trustworthy. At Greystone, we are here to develop our personal sense of right and wrong, and ultimately that begins with what we say. We will submit our own work and recognize the work of others. We will not act out of self-interest with the intent to gain or to give an unfair advantage by plagiarizing, misrepresenting, or using unauthorized notes. I will not cheat. Cheating disrupts our academic integrity. And as Greystoners, we strive to be honest in the classroom and in all work we do. We will respect the property of others. We will not wrongfully withhold or obtain possession of money, property, or articles with the intent of depriving the owner of its use. I will not steal. While cheating relates to integrity in our work, This clause focuses on the responsibility of our own physical property. Stealing is not acceptable at the academies, nor will it be tolerated here. The honor code is in place to reflect and develop our own moral compass, and we are here to develop a professional reputation. That means we are obligated to take action if a violation is to occur. So in the event that a violation does occur, a witness can take 3 options. The first off, to turn in the suspected offender. If the witness believes that the offense is serious enough, that witness can come directly to the honor committee, either through their honor representative, the vice chairman, or myself. The second option would be for the witness to confront the suspected offender. That witness would approach the suspected offender and question their behavior. Based on that judgment, if they believe that there's enough evidence for violation by the honor code, that witness is obligated to turn that case into committee. However, if that person believes that there's not enough evidence to incriminate this person, then the case can be dropped. When a case is brought to the honor committee, we follow a set procedure modeled after that of the U.S. service academies. This system preserves the chain of command and prepares us for how violations will be handled at the academies. The first step would be that the chief investigating officer, Grayson Strauss, would launch an investigation through interviews and written deposition. He would then take those facts and present them to the honor committee. The accused is innocent until proven guilty, and based on the judgment of the honor committee, if there's enough evidence to incriminate this person, the case will be passed along to the class. The class can vote whether or not a violation has occurred. If there is evidence that a violation has occurred, the accused will have the opportunity to provide oral testimony in his own defense. And based on that judgment, the class would vote whether or not that person is guilty. If guilty, that case will then be brought up to Commander Bailey, who will then offer punishment to that individual. However, the class can also vote that there's not enough evidence for a person. And if found not guilty, the case will be dismissed. And similarly, if the honor committee finds that there's not enough evidence for honor violation, the case can be dismissed while in committee. This process is lengthy but necessary. It is here that as future officers, we begin to see just how important our honor is. Being here at Greystone will make responsibility a force of habit wherever we go and in whatever we do. With that, I will open up to questions, and Judge Tinley, if you have any remarks.
Okay, let's take your shots. Let's test them. Let me throw the first one at you. I've got a little inside information here. You started out with an honor concept, if you recall. That's what the class came with initially. At some point in the process, they voted ultimately to go to an honor code. Number one, what's the difference, if any, between those two? And number two, why the change? Y'all want to choose up sides over there?
A code is pretty broad in all the wording in it. And the concept offers options there right in the code of what to do if an offense were to happen. And all the things that you heard before with the witnessing, that would be included in the honor concept. And we decided to change it from a concept to a code because it was originally a code in order to alleviate any confusion with the wording of the honor concept. So we created a separate document with rules and procedures.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Does the code apply to non-Greystone students as well? For example, if you notice a non-Greystone student cheating on a test, stealing property, lying, etc., how would you handle that situation?
As Greystoners, we're obligated to tell the teacher if we witness any cheating. Plain and simple.
Okay. And if you see a teacher stealing or robbing or lying or something?
I'm not sure how to handle it.
Okay.
He's bigger than you, watch it.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, sir?
What did you have, excuse me, what did you have in place for the last 3 years? What did you do with violations for the last 3 years? How did you handle those? Is it similar, or is this the first time that you've been able to come up with a network and a procedure to bring those to the attention?
Sir, it's been the same for the last 3 years. Pretty much the same rules and procedures if a violation were occurred.
Okay, so this is an extrapolation of what was existing.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
This isn't a question, but just a comment on what was just asked. I think each class starts with basically a white piece of paper. And they develop their own. They've had classes after classes that have this honor code developed. When I don't know that they have given last 3 years of what they came up with. So each class uniquely works their own honor code.
I can assure you that is correct. Now, as you might expect, a lot of the guidance comes from not only the codes and the standards from the various military academies, but also the procedures that are in place at those academies on how they handle alleged infractions that may occur there. There are certain due process requirements that are honored and so forth. And so there's a lot of looking to the academy rules and also the codes and standards, as you might expect. That's what they're going to ultimately be governed by. I think the intent of these young men and women is to put together a code or a concept such that it doesn't make any difference which academy a particular individual might ultimately end up attending. What they have plugged into the honor code here covers everything with the honor code of that academy, all of the academies. And that way it covers the whole thing like an umbrella. Yes, sir?
If I could just add on to this a little bit. The honor code, honor concept, there's a method, a reason why we do this every year. And to be honest, it's fundamental to the learning process here at Greystone. The reason why we just don't tell them that this is your honor code and you will live by it is we want to evolve an education process so that they learn about the different honor codes and honor concepts at the academy, so that when they get there, they've already had a year of experience living under that code or that concept. And therefore, when they transition from Greystone to the academy, it's a lateral, seamless transition. And to this date, we've never had a Greystone student violate an honor code. So from that perspective, there's method to the madness, but here's the real essence. It is my desire to have these young people, once they get to the academy, they actually, instead of living by an honor code, they take the lead and demonstrate by their own actions what living by a code is about, so that by the time they're seniors, they are members of the honor committee or the honor concept overall at the academy. And to this date, we've had several Greystone students who have been part of the brigade or the core honor code or honor committee program. So it does work. And again, it starts here, starting slow, but they've taken this and they've run with it. And I think they've done a great job. We'll give you more on that later.
Like so many other things, if they have to develop and drum it into their own heads, somehow it sticks a little bit better. And if it's just handed to them and said, this is what you're going to have to live by when you get to an academy, this is what you're going to start living by here, next subject. it makes a much, much bigger impression on them. And the importance of it, I think, is set forth to that. Do we have any more? Yes, sir.
In addition to the honor codes from all the academies, did you expose them to any of the procedures out of the Uniform Code of Military Justice for handling those items?
No, sir. Because these aren't acts of, how do I put it? These aren't literally actions. They're more of concerns of personal integrity.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, let's move on to the next segment, if we might, Kurt.
And now I'd like to introduce Sandro Leone. He's the chairman of the Class of 2014 Standards of Conduct Committee, and he will come forward and present his class's Standards of Conduct. Sandro?
All right, thank you, Colonel. Again, I am Alessandro Leone, and I am the chairman of the Conduct Committee. Seated to my left is my Conduct Vice Chairman, Mason Miller. She's responsible for aiding the Conduct Committee throughout the year, serving in place of me if I am absent. Next to her is our Chief Investigator, Alan Rogers. He is responsible for the gathering of all information and creating a report of any conduct offenses throughout the year. Sitting amongst my fellow teammates are the Conduct Committee squad representatives. Representing First Squad is Alex Bryant. Representing Second Squad is Delaney Musselman. Representing Third Squad is Connor Drum. And representing Fourth Squad is Emily Bailey. Thank you. You may be seated. We as a class have drafted a standards of conduct in order to refine and develop our moral compass. And for those of you who don't know what that is, essentially our moral compass is not only the ability to discern what's right from what's wrong, but it is acting on what's right instead of acting on what's wrong. Here is the first half of our standards of conduct, and again, I'll roll it up for you so those who can't see. Got you covered. And if you look at your brochure, you'll see that this is only the first half of it. I'll get to the second half later. This part pertains to the actions that we as a class will not partake in. The first being, we will not use illegal drugs, abuse prescription medication, or other substances that can cause or are capable of causing harm. Here at Greystone, like the service academies, we maintain a zero-tolerance policy for the use of illegal drugs, the abuse of prescription medications, and other substances that are capable of causing harm. Secondly, we will not engage in the illegal consumption and abuse of alcohol. Here at Greystone, we maintain a one-strike policy when it comes to the use of alcohol. And now, what makes us different from the academies is we as a class decided to engage in the illegal consumption of alcohol. Because technically, in the state of Texas and some other states, if you are with a parent and you have their consent, you can consume alcoholic beverages. So that's why it's in here as illegal consumption. However, because we hope to live to a higher standard, it is my hope and the class's hope that we as Greystoners go as far to abstain from the consumption of alcohol, because at the service academies, freshmen are expected to live by that same principle. Thirdly, we will not engage in sexual activity that will prevent us from earning an academy appointment. The academies state clearly in the eligibility requirements that you cannot be pregnant or a dependent of a child. And it also clearly states that you are not medically qualified to attend a service academy if you have a sexually transmitted disease. This is why we as a class would like to, hopefully with would abstain from these actions that would prevent us from obtaining a Service Academy appointment. Lastly, we will not degrade or harass anyone in a verbal, physical, or sexual nature. The statement here addresses a recent problem that's been occurring in our nation's armed forces, and that is sexual harassment. In the past year alone, many high-ranking military officers have damaged the integrity of their careers and the military's professional image through their actions. As the next generation of military leaders, we hope that by addressing this issue now at Greystone, we can set a new standard for the military's future and earn back the respect that some have tarnished because of their actions. The second half of our standards of conduct addresses the things that we as a class will do. First one being, we will act professionally in such a way that will reflect positively upon Greystone, the community, and the armed forces. As future military officers, there is a higher standard expected of us. The people look towards the men and women in uniform as leaders of this nation. We lose that respect if we are not acting in a professional manner that is expected of all military officers. That is why we as a class incorporated this clause into our standards of conduct. Secondly, we will treat everyone with respect and dignity. Now, our generation seems to be plagued with the reputation of bullying, as some of you might know. As a class, we want to reverse this. That is why we will be respectful to other people, we will value their opinion, and we will treat them how we would want to be treated. We will treat others with dignity and not degrade or make them feel left out. We are here to learn to become leaders, not bullies. We will be friends. Thirdly, we will maintain professional relationships with our teammates. As future military leaders, it is important that we maintain professional relationships. At Greystone, we are like family, and we will treat each other like brother and like sister. Encourage them, but also maintain professional relationships with them. Many military officers have had their careers ruined because they had relationships with fellow service members that were less than professional. We want to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And lastly, we will be accountable for portraying a professional image on social media sites. Now, in our day and age, we are enriched in technology, and our generation is heavily involved in the use of social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, if some of you know what that means. For us, this presents a potential hazard. The academies, like employers, usually frequent these social media sites to make sure that the person they may hire is who they say they really are. Anything we post online can be viewed by anyone else. And with that said, it is important that we as a class not only represent ourselves in a professional manner, but we also represent the armed services on which we are about to enter. And our final statement, the Greystone Class 2014 will uphold these standards, put forth our best effort, and work diligently to pursue the class's goal of 42 for 42. And what 42 for 42 means, for some of you who may not know, is there are 42 Greystones here, and it is our hope that all 42 of us earn our academy appointments. Now, if we have a situation where someone is suspect to be in violation of our standards of conduct, like our honor code, we follow a similar procedure. There are 3 courses of action that someone can take if they believe another has committed a conduct offense. First thing they can do is immediately report that to a conduct committee representative. The second option they have is to counsel the individual. And upon that counseling, the witness to the suspected offender can either determine that there is definitely an offense that had occurred, or there is reasonable doubt that an offense has occurred. And in that case, it is mandatory for that person to bring that situation to a conduct committee representative. If the witness counsels the suspected offender, and they believe that without a doubt that no conduct offense has occurred, then at that point, the case can be dropped. However, if the conduct committee is presented with a case that may involve the breaking of one of our standards of conduct, we will launch an investigation similar to those of the service academies. Our chief investigator, Alan Rogers, will launch an investigation and obtain verbal and written testimony from the person in question and any witnesses involved. The committee will then compile the information and decide if there is sufficient evidence to go forward with the case. If not, it will be dropped there. If there is significant evidence, then the case will be presented to the class, and the person who is suspected of breaking one of our standards of conduct will be able to issue a verbal statement during that hearing and defend their case. Afterwards, the class will take to a vote to decide if the suspect of violating the standards of conduct had indeed broken one of our standards of conduct or has not. If the class decides that the suspected offender did not break one of our standards of conduct, then the case will be dropped and the class is dismissed. However, if the class decides as a whole that they believe the suspected offender has broken one of our standards of conduct, then we will forward that information to our Executive Director, Commander Bailey, where he will issue proper punishment. Now, we have two special exceptions with the standards of conduct, and that involves our drug and alcohol policy. Because Greystone maintains a zero-tolerance policy for the use of illegal drugs, prescription medications, and other harmful substances, if one is convicted of breaking that clause of our standards of conduct, they will meet immediate dismissal from the Greystone program, and that offenders' nomination authorities, as well as the service academies, will be notified of the offense that they have committed and their dismissal from the Greystone program. Now for alcohol, because Greystone, like the service academies, maintains a one-strike policy, if an offender gets their first strike for the use of alcohol, that will result in mandatory AA meetings through the Shriner program here, as well as mandatory counseling with Commander Bailey. If that person breaks the alcohol abuse and our standards of conduct a second time, then that will result in the immediate dismissal from the Greystone class, and their nomination sources, as well as the service academies, will be notified of that dismissal. Once again, once we sign this document here shortly, we are agreeing to abide by these rules and holding ourselves to a higher standard, because those whom we lead will always deserve better of us. I would now like to turn the lectern over to Judge Tinley for questions and discussion.
Well, we've got some interesting things here. The social media thing, I think, I suspect when social media was talked about over on this side of the room, there were glazed eyes. Over here, I don't know, they may have been checking their iPhones, but that really throws a different kink into things. It's amazing how much information is disseminated through these social media sites. Some of it good, a lot of it not so good. Prospective employers, college admissions folks, recruiters in the military, all the way across the board. They look at these things now. And it's very, very important because there is a lot of information contained there. Some of it's valid, some of it's not, but some of it they're glaring 8 and 10s, looking right at you. And what was a comment I heard? You can't take back stupid. You know? Once it happens, it's there. It's out there in the electronic media until the end of time, I suppose. So that throws a whole different wrinkle in things when you talk about the social media coming into play on these things. And there's a lot of temptation of these young people. They all use it, they communicate with it, and to stay on one side of the line, I'm sure is challenging at sometimes, particularly in view of some of the things that they receive and the way they would like to respond. There's a tendency to respond by saying, you can't take back stupid, for example. But you've got to act professionally, and I'm sure it's causes a great deal of restraint on your part in order to not fire off something that you maybe wish you hadn't done 2 seconds after you hit the scene. But let's see what these youngsters. Tell us about the discussion when it came down to the social media portion of it.
We recognize that as society progresses and technology advances, that we need to also maintain our professional image, and which also means social media. In order to maintain our professional image, we have to ensure that all of our social media sites have the same professional image that we want to portray. Nothing inappropriate, nothing bad. We just need to make sure we retain our image.
Anybody got any questions, comments? Yes, sir?
If a member of a committee were to witness an act that might be a violation, is that then shared with the entire committee, or would that member of the committee have the option to counsel the person and determine whether or not they thought it should go to the full committee?
Just because one of the committee members might witness a potential violation of our standards of conduct doesn't mean they would not follow the same procedures. Yes, we may be one of the members on the conduct committee, but we would still be responsible for, if we believe that some counseling needs to happen with that individual, we are obligated to ask them about what has happened, and if we think that there is significant evidence that they have broken their standard of conduct, then since we are already a member of the committee, we will just call the rest of our committee together to discuss what has happened.
And you also have the opportunity to dismiss it at that point?
You do. Same as everyone else, if we believe that there is absolutely no way, it's just a mistake, then we are allowed to dismiss the case at that point.
Question for all the members of the class of 2014. How many of you have received social media communications that had the individual sending that communication to you been a member of the Greystone class? You would have been compelled to bring it to the committee's attention possibly. Is there anybody that hadn't received one of those? Thought so. It's a scary, scary world out there. And the technology is such, you know, I'm still back in the 19th century, I think. But they're dragging me kicking and screaming to some degree. But this technology is just, it's running over us. And it's what these young men and women are going to be using for virtually everything that they do. So it's a scary area, it really is. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
How were the members of the committees selected? How were the members of the committees selected?
Members of these committees, how were they selected? Senior staff. Senior staff of Greystone selected the members of these committees early in the year.
When you talk about senior staff, are those the teachers or?
Commander Bailey, Captain Portman, Todd Reichert, Colonel Reichert, Canal, Brenda Bailey. I think that's pretty much the core of the senior staff.
Now, is the committee's duty now finished, or do they go on?
Oh, no, they are just now starting. They're all going to come up here momentarily and sign on the line, and that's launch point. At that point, they pledge themselves to be bound by the honor code and the standards of conduct. And just as they would if they were going into the academy as a freshman, I'm not sure what the procedure is because I've not been there, but I suspect it's somewhat less ceremonious than what it is here. It's probably not made as big an impression upon them there as it is in these proceedings, and that's our intent, to make the impression so that it sticks now and it lasts forever. That's the whole point.
That signing off is not just for the committee, that would be for the whole.
Every single member of the Greystone class will be signing their name here momentarily. Are we about ready to get? Yes, sir.
And just to clarify, it's not just for this year, but it's for your lifetime, right? Lifetime.
Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Sir, real quick, just for the parents that are here, I know since this is an innocent until proven guilty kind of thing, at what point would the parents be notified? I mean, that's to Commander Bailey. Is that kind of up to their discretion?
Yeah, it's essentially up to the student. They're 18, and therefore, if they choose to tell you, that's fine. If they don't choose to tell you, well, I have to respect that. However, if you get a red letter in the mail from me, that's the indication that maybe you should call me and we can have a conversation.
I'll be on your way to help them pack their gear. Anything else? Carter?
I don't know how to word this. And really for both the standards and the code. You have 42 young men and women coming from all course of life, different backgrounds, different education, different environments. You bring them here, and as the chairman of the standards and the code, you form what you've done, what you created, and what you're going to sign. I'm curious as to how long this process took. And when you were creating this document, which is going to be your life going forward, not saying it wasn't when you were in high school, but you have now taken on a new commitment. I'm curious, maybe the two chairs, how long did it take you to create these documents? And how much controversy was there? How much input did you have from every one of the 42 people? When you created this, I will not do this, I will not do that. And I'm sure that nobody had ever done that before. So you're changing your way of life. And the basic question is, I don't need to carry on, but how long did it take you to prepare this, and how much controversy was there during the preparation of the documents?
Chris? On the honor code?
Yes, sir.
You want to tell us how that process evolved and who all was involved and for how long and how many do's and redos and things of that nature occurred?
Well, sir, I can safely say that for the last 2 months, we have been talking about the honor code and formulating it. And people at all levels of the Greystone were notified and asked their opinion on the code and whether or not this should be here or whether this should say this. And we had to make sure that everyone was willing to be able to sign it. And that took a lot of controversy. For the last 2 weeks especially, we have met various times after study hall, which is around 11 o'clock at night, sir. And we stay up longer than that because there's a lot of arguing on what should be said or not. But eventually we were able to come to a compromise.
Standards?
Now, the standards of conduct didn't take as much controversy.
I'm sorry, what?
They did not take as much controversy as the honor code did, fortunately. But we did start work on that about the same time we did honor code about 2 months ago. We met multiple times as a class. The conduct committee presented what we had drafted for the class. We received input on Saturday afternoons through character development lessons. We received input from the class on what they thought should be in the code, what they thought we should be living by as a class, as the Greystone class. And we incorporated that into the standards of conduct, re-showed the class again, and they gave more critiques, more things that they think should be in there, more things that they think should not be in there. We essentially kept doing that until we all came to a consensus that today, this is the final document that is on that table, is what we all agreed to sign and live by.
Thank you for your answer.
Any other questions, comments? Let's get on with it then.
Ladies and gentlemen, the class of 2014 will now come forward to sign their honor code and their standards of conduct. you the founder and the executive director of the Greystone program, Lieutenant Commander David Bennett.
I'm on the podium or the lectern primarily because I need to talk to you. So if you bear with me just for a second, you'll notice who was the last person to sign the document? Judge Tinley. Why did he sign your document? It's your document. Why did he sign it? He is your advisor, your mentor for both the standards of conduct and the honor code. Your standards of conduct, your honor code. If you have questions or concerns about it, he is your guy that you can talk to. The committee has access to him round the clock. Okay, because honor and conduct are 724, 365 from this point on. Whether you realize it or not, you have just taken a giant step forward in your development as a responsible and accountable leader. Okay? Before people can trust you with their lives, they have to know that you are a person of character, someone with honor and integrity. You've taken that first step here today. So it's huge. And I want to applaud all of you for taking this step freely without anybody putting a gun to your head. So great job. Now, your job, as the judge said, is just beginning. Okay? This job is not easy because these are your classmates, your teammates. And if someone suspects them of violating either the code or the standard, it is your obligation, it is your duty to execute your responsibility. Now, if a case is presented to either the committee or to the class, you have the right to vote. You do not get the right to abstain. You must vote. And you vote with your head and your heart. Based on the information, the evidence presented to you, you will either vote that a violation has occurred or it has not. Simple as that. There is no half full, half empty kind of thing. It is either it occurred or it did not. Simple as that. The majority rules. Majority rules. Okay? Now, what happens if something is then brought to me? I'm the executioner, great. No. First of all, I will be very disappointed in you. Okay? Disappointed in you. Because, first of all, you've let your team down. Second of all, and most importantly, you've let yourself down. This is about your honor, your integrity, your character. And it is my job then to identify where is the problem. Peel back the layer of the onion to find where this thing came from. And I've done this before. Other Greystoners before you have violated the honor code or the standards of conduct. And I've had to spend many, many days working with these young people. But it is possible to learn from these mistakes and move forward. There are young people who violated the honor code as well as the standards of conduct that are at the academies or have graduated and now at flight school, driving ships. They're out there. They've learned. And that's the essence of Greystone. This is your opportunity to learn. Learn about yourself. Learn about your teammates and your obligation to them. This business about, I don't want to rat my buddy out. That's done. Everybody freely signed these documents up here. And now it is up to you to uphold your standard. Deviation from the standard is unacceptable. And therefore you have to embrace that. Even though you're friends with these guys, you have to uphold the standard because that's what you stand for. If you're not willing to stand for that, you're not willing to stand for anything. So, great job today. You guys have taken a huge step. Now embrace what it is that you're doing, okay, and live by it. It's possible. We do it every day here at Greystone. But this now is your honor code. It is your standards of conduct. You are the ones who wrote it. You're the ones who signed it. So again, it's not going to be easy, but it is your task. Parents, friends of Greystone, this is probably terrifying for you, okay? But it's not my job to separate these young people for mistakes they make. This is a learning institution first and foremost. And in the event of a violation, it is my job to train them, to educate them on what they did, why they did it, and how we can make them better and stronger as a result of that. So that when they get to the academy, when they go to the fleet in the field, they will not make the same mistake again. That they will be seen as young men and women of honor and integrity. So, if you hear that your son or your daughter has violated an honor code, or you read in the paper that we have done something here at Greystone that violates our standard of conduct, believe me, we are taking positive, quick action to resolve those problems for not only this class, but the rest of the classes to come. Okay? So you have my word on that. That's our task. So, with that being said, I first need to identify two guys that have worked their fannies off to make this evening possible. Chris Denega, stand up, Chris. Chris was identified early on as a potential candidate to be the honor chairman. And until about 4 hours ago, I really had my doubts. But I got to tell you, he stood up there and knocked this thing out of the park. Chris, great job. Leone is the same kind of guy, okay? He was kind of cool and casual coming into this thing. I thought, this might not be the right guy, but he proved to me, just in fact yesterday, that he had it together and he delivered it. I thought his presentation was very professional and well done. This task that they've undertaken is not easy. It is not easy. Living by a standard, to separate them, saying that they want to be the best of the best, is not an easy undertaking. But they've freely taken this obligation and they're going to live up to it. And I think for those of us in this community, this really reflects positively on what these kids stand for. This is the essence of our future. And I think as a community here, we need to embrace what it is they're doing and celebrate this moment because it's few and far between. Most of the young people at this age are in the newspaper for doing drugs, doing things that bring discredit upon themselves and their family, their community. These young people are standing up and saying, we want to be different. So help us to celebrate that tonight, and I would encourage you at the end of this presentation, which is in about 30 seconds, to join us over in the conference room, the Greystone conference room. We have some refreshments, and it's a chance for you to talk to the students about their honor code or standards of conduct. So with that, I will say thank you very much for coming tonight, and again, class of 2014, great job. I'm very proud of you. We are adjourned.